The station hung in space like a dying skeleton. Broken lights flickered along its corridors, and the smell of metal and dust mixed in the thin air. This place was called Trenok Station, a trade hub for scavengers, traders, and criminals. Most ships that came here were old, rusting, or broken. The station had a reputation for selling anything: illegal weapons, stolen parts, and even living beings. In a small, dark corner of the station, a girl crouched among heaps of metal scraps. She was tiny, with greenish skin and large, glowing eyes that reflected the dim light. Her name was Lyra. She was a Veiri, one of the few left after her people had been nearly destroyed by the Dominion, a powerful and cruel empire. She had been captured as a child and sold many times. Now she worked in a scrapyard, sorting broken ship parts, wires, and damaged machines for a human dealer named Corvin. Corvin was tall and harsh, with a rough voice that always barked orders. He didn't care about Lyra. To him, she was just another tool, a cheap worker. "Move faster, scrap girl," he yelled as she carried a heavy engine core. Her small hands trembled, but she lifted it anyway, placing it carefully in a metal crate. She hated this life. Every day was long and painful. Every night she slept on cold metal floors, dreaming of a home she never knew. She had no family, no friends, no one who cared. She had been told she was worthless, that her life meant nothing. The words burned in her mind, and sometimes she believed them. Corvin laughed as he watched her struggle. "You're slow. You're useless. I should sell you for parts instead of letting you live." Lyra kept her head down. She had learned that words were weapons, and resistance only made her life harder. She moved quickly, sorting scraps into piles, ignoring the other workers who whispered and laughed. Some were humans like Corvin, and some were aliens like her. But none of them cared about her. She was alone in a crowded place. Suddenly, the station doors opened with a loud hiss. A human walked in, tall and broad-shouldered, with a rugged face and tired eyes. His brown hair was messy, and he carried a worn metal case in one hand. He moved slowly, scanning the room as if searching for something important. His name was Ethan Cole, a former soldier-turned-scavenger. He had fought in wars across many systems, but now he preferred to salvage old ships for a living. Ethan noticed Lyra immediately. She was different from the other workers. Her eyes were bright even in the dim light. They looked at him for a moment, wary and scared. She froze when she realized he was watching her. Corvin saw him too. "You here to buy scraps or cause trouble?" he asked, his voice sharp. Ethan ignored him. His gaze stayed on Lyra. He walked closer, stepping carefully over broken machinery. "How much for the girl?" he asked calmly, his voice low but firm. Corvin laughed. "You want to buy her? She's not worth a credit. She's just a tool. But if you want her, I'll take 50 credits. Cheap enough for a slave girl, right?" Lyra's heart skipped a beat. 50 credits. She was being sold again, just like always. She had no control over her life. No one asked if she wanted this. She looked down at her hands, hoping they wouldn't shake. Ethan nodded and opened his case. He counted the credits carefully, placing them on the counter. "Here," he said. "I'll take her." Corvin shrugged and pointed at Lyra. "She's yours. Don't expect her to be useful." Lyra felt fear and confusion. She didn't know this human, and yet he had just bought her freedom. She looked at Ethan, expecting cruelty or anger, but all she saw was calm. He nodded at her once simply and turned to leave. "Wait!" Corvin shouted. "You think she'll even survive out there? She's weak, useless, and—" Ethan didn't answer. He carried Lyra out of the scrapyard, stepping over debris without looking back. The station's doors closed behind them, and the noise of the scrapyard faded into silence. Outside, the ship hung quietly in the docking bay. It was old and battered, a small freighter called the Horizon Dawn. Its hull was scratched and dented, but it still held the hum of engines ready to awaken. Ethan opened the ramp and Lyra hesitated. She had never been inside a ship before. The last time she had seen one was as a prisoner, being loaded onto a Dominion transport for war. Ethan noticed her fear. "Don't worry," he said gently. "You're safe now. No one can hurt you here." Lyra stepped inside cautiously. The ship smelled of oil and metal, warm and alive. Lights flickered on as Ethan activated the main systems. He guided her to a small bunk at the back of the ship. It was not comfortable, but it was clean. She sat down, staring at the walls, trying to believe that she was finally free. "You don't have to work tonight," Ethan said. "Rest, eat something." "You'll need your strength," Lyra shook her head. I'm not used to kindness," she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe it's time to get used to it. That night, Lyra slept for the first time in years without fear. For the first time, she didn't dream of chains or scrap piles or being sold again. She dreamed of stars, of flying, of a life that could be hers. The next morning, Ethan taught her simple things: how to read the ship's controls, how to repair minor damage, and how to move safely in zero gravity. She was slow at first, clumsy and unsure, but he never scolded her. He corrected her gently, showing patience she had never known. As the days passed, Lyra began to feel something she had never felt before: hope. She began to call Ethan Captain even though he protested. He didn't want her to see him as a master, only as a friend. But Lyra had no other word for someone who saved her. One day, while cleaning a section of the ship, she found an old photograph hidden under a panel. It was of a young human family smiling on a green planet. Lyra didn't know why, but she felt a pang of longing. "Do humans always care so much for each other?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at the photo. "Some do," he said. "Some care enough to change someone's life." "That's all I wanted to do for you," Lyra didn't answer. She simply stared at the stars through the ship's window. She had been sold for scraps, forgotten and discarded, but now someone had rewritten her destiny, and for the first time she believed that maybe, just maybe, she could have a future. But far away in the black reaches of space, the Dominion still hunted the Veyari. They would not forget her. They would not forgive those who helped her escape. And though she did not yet know it, Lyra's freedom would not come easily. For now, though, the Horizon Dawn drifted silently among the stars, carrying a small human and a tiny alien girl, beginning a journey that would change both of their lives forever. And for the first time, Lyra felt something she had never felt in her short life: that she mattered. The Horizon Dawn drifted through the quiet of space. Its engines hummed softly, a steady reminder that the ship, though old and battered, was alive. Lyra moved slowly through the corridors, touching the walls, her green fingers brushing against the smooth metal. She had never seen a ship like this before. On Tranok Station, everything was harsh, dirty, and dangerous, but here there was order. There was light. There was space to breathe. Ethan watched her from the control room. He noticed the way her eyes followed every panel and pipe, the way she paused to examine a loose bolt or a frayed wire. "Careful," he said gently. "Don't touch anything you're not sure about. This ship is old. One wrong move and it could—" "I know," Lyra interrupted, her voice quiet but firm. "But I want to learn. I want to help." Ethan paused. Most humans would have ignored her, treated her like a child, or worse, expected her to stay out of the way. But something in Lyra's voice reminded him of something he had forgotten long ago: courage. She was small, fragile, and yet she wanted to fight for her own place in the world. "All right," he said finally. "I'll teach you. Start with the basics. The engines are back here." He led her down a narrow corridor to the ship's engine room. Sparks of old wires flickered against the walls. The engine was large and complex, a tangle of metal and tubes that had seen too many years in space. Lyra stared at it in awe. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "It can be if you treat it right. Otherwise it'll kill you." For the next several hours he showed her the parts of the engine: how to check the coolant levels, how to repair broken circuits, and how to listen to the hum to know if something was wrong. At first Lyra struggled. Her hands were small and the machinery was heavy. Sometimes she dropped tools and sparks flew. But Ethan never yelled. He only corrected her gently, showing her again and again until she understood. When they finally paused, Lyra leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. "I think I can do this," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I want to be able to fix the ship, not just watch it." Ethan nodded. "Good. That's the spirit. You'll need it. Out here nothing comes easy." Days passed and Lyra learned quickly. She discovered that her Veyari hands, though delicate, were surprisingly strong and precise. She could handle the smallest screws and the heaviest bolts with the same care. Ethan began to rely on her more. She learned to read the star charts, to plot courses through asteroid fields, and even to operate the ship's scanners. One morning, while checking the navigation system, Lyra noticed a blip on the radar. "Captain," she said, pointing at the screen. "There's something out there. A ship, I think, moving fast." Ethan leaned over, examining the readout. "A patrol ship, probably Dominion," he said grimly. "They might be looking for you." Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. "For me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "For both of us. But don't worry. I'll keep you safe." That night, as the ship drifted through the darkness, Lyra sat quietly by the observation window, staring at the stars. She remembered the nights on Trenox Station, sleeping on cold metal floors, dreaming of freedom she never had. Now she had freedom. She had a place to call home and someone who cared about her. But the memory of being sold, the fear of being hunted, never left her completely. She wondered if she could ever truly escape the shadow of her past. Ethan found her there. He didn't speak at first, just stood behind her looking at the same stars. After a moment he said, "You're not alone anymore. You don't have to be afraid." Lyra turned to him, her large eyes reflecting the starlight. "I want to believe that," she said softly. "You will," he said. "I promise." In the days that followed, Ethan decided to teach Lyra something more. Not just how to operate the ship, but how to defend herself. He took her to the training bay, a small room with padded floors and walls. "You need to be ready for anything," he explained. "Out here, it's not just machines that can hurt you. People can too." Lyra hesitated at first. She had never fought anyone. The only times she had used her strength were to survive, to lift debris or run from danger. But Ethan guided her patiently. He showed her how to block, how to dodge, and how to strike if she had no choice. At first she was clumsy. She tripped over her own feet, missed swings, and stumbled, but she refused to give up. Each time she fell, she got up again. And each time Ethan praised her progress, reminding her that persistence was more important than perfection. "You're doing well," he said one evening after a long session. "Most humans give up after a few days. You've been at this for hours." Lyra smiled faintly. "I don't want to give up. Not anymore." Ethan looked at her and felt a strange pride. He had seen many soldiers, many warriors, but there was something different about her. She was small, fragile, and yet she had a fire inside her, a determination that made him believe she could survive anything. As the Horizon Dawn traveled further from the outer colonies, they encountered other ships. Most were scavengers like Ethan, looking for old parts or trade. Some were traders, and a few were mercenaries. Lyra watched these encounters carefully, learning from Ethan how to negotiate, how to read intentions, and how to stay calm in tense situations. One day they came across a disabled cargo ship drifting in the void. Ethan decided to investigate. "It might be abandoned," he said, "or it might have something valuable." Lyra followed him into the airlock. The ship was dark, silent, and eerie. Broken panels hung from the ceiling, and the floor was covered with dust. As they moved carefully, Lyra noticed a small crate in the corner. She went to examine it and found a small alien creature inside, shivering and weak. Ethan looked at her surprised. "You want to help it?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, it's alive. It deserves a chance." Together, they brought the creature aboard the Horizon Dawn. Lyra cleaned it, fed it, and wrapped it in a blanket. Watching it recover, she felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was helping others survive too. As the days turned into weeks, Lyra grew stronger. She repaired parts of the ship, learned to navigate through asteroid fields, and even assisted Ethan in small battles with raiders or hostile traders. Each day she learned something new. Each day she became more confident. Ethan began to trust her judgment. "You've got a good mind for this," he said one day, watching her plot a course through a field of asteroids. "You think faster than I expected." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. Praise was rare in her life, and this felt different. It wasn't fear or obligation. It was genuine acknowledgement. She began to believe in herself. But the shadow of the Dominion loomed. They had not forgotten the Veyari. and they would not forgive those who helped them. Ethan knew it was only a matter of time before they would face danger. But for now, he allowed himself a small hope. With Lyra by his side, he felt stronger, more capable of facing whatever came. One evening, as they floated silently in the void, Lyra asked, "Captain, do you think we can ever be truly free?" Ethan looked at her, his face serious. Freedom isn't just about being away from chains, it's about making choices. Right now we are free because we choose to be, and we'll fight to stay that way, no matter what comes. Lyra nodded, feeling a spark of determination ignite inside her. She would no longer be a scrap girl, sold for credits and discarded. She would fight, she would learn, and she would survive. And maybe, someday, she would even make a difference. The Horizon Dawn continued its journey through the stars. A human and an alien, bound not by blood but by trust and shared struggle. Together they were small, but together they were strong. And though the dangers of the galaxy were many, they knew that as long as they stood together, they could face anything. And so, the journey continued, through the silent void, past abandoned stations and dangerous patrols into a future that neither of them could fully see. But both were determined to shape. The Horizon Dawn glided silently through the black expanse of space. Stars glimmered outside the observation windows, distant and cold. But the ship hummed with life. Lyra stood at the helm, her hands hovering over the navigation controls. She had grown confident in her skills, and Ethan had begun to rely on her judgment. Today she felt a strange mixture of pride and fear. "Keep your focus," Ethan said, standing behind her. His voice was calm, but his eyes scanned the radar constantly. Patrols could appear at any moment. Lyra nodded. She had learned to read the ship's scanners quickly, spotting anomalies that could indicate enemy ships. She adjusted the course slightly to avoid a dense asteroid field. Ethan's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "Good. That's exactly the kind of thinking that will keep us alive." For the first time in her life, Lyra felt useful. She was no longer a discarded child sold for scraps. She was contributing, making decisions, and helping someone she trusted. The weight of that feeling was heavy, but it was not unpleasant. Suddenly, an alert blared through the ship. Red lights flashed across the control panel. Ethan's expression tightened. "Incoming," he muttered. "They found us." Lyra's heart raced. On the radar, a Dominion patrol ship appeared, moving fast, weapons online. They had been careful for weeks, avoiding main trade routes and known patrol sectors. But the Dominion was relentless. "Evasive maneuvers," Ethan ordered. "Hold on." Lyra gripped the controls tightly as Ethan engaged the engines. The Horizon Dawn lurched forward, dodging debris and small asteroids, weaving through the void with careful precision. The Dominion ship fired warning shots, energy beams slicing past the freighter. Sparks flew from the outer hull as they grazed the ship. "You're doing well," Ethan shouted over the alarms. "Keep them off balance. Don't let them predict your moves." Lyra focused, adjusting the ship's angle, pushing it to its limits. Her small fingers moved with surprising speed, directing the ship through narrow gaps between asteroids. The patrol ship struggled to follow, firing blindly at the moving freighter, but then a beam hit the rear engine. The ship shuddered violently. Lyra stumbled, her hand sliding across the controls. Alarm screamed in her ears. "Rear engine damaged," she yelled. Ethan grabbed her shoulder. "I know. Divert all power to the main thrusters. I'll handle the weapons." The freighter lurched again, spinning slightly as the Dominion ship closed in. Lyra's heart pounded. She felt a flash of panic, but then she remembered everything Ethan had taught her. She focused, blocking out fear, letting her instincts take over. Carefully, she adjusted the power, redirecting energy to stabilize the ship. Slowly, it righted itself. Ethan fired the ship's cannons, hitting the patrol ship's shields. Sparks and debris burst outward. The Dominion vessel slowed, struggling to regain its targeting. "You're doing it," Ethan shouted, pride in his voice. "Keep it steady." Lyra's hands flew over the controls. She felt something in her chest, a surge of strength she had never known. She was no longer the scrap girl from Trenox Station. She was part of the ship, part of its crew. She was capable. She was alive, but the Dominion ship was not finished. It fired a powerful shot that tore through the freighter's side. Lyra was thrown to the floor. Pain and fear shot through her body, but she forced herself up. She crawled to the damaged engine bay where smoke poured from a ruptured coolant pipe. "I can fix it," she shouted, voice trembling. She grabbed tools and worked quickly, using every skill Ethan had taught her. Sparks flew as she repaired circuits, replaced broken tubes, and stabilized the engine. She barely had time to breathe before the ship lurched again, narrowly avoiding another shot. Ethan looked at her in amazement. "You saved us," he said, almost in disbelief. "You actually saved us," Lyra shook her head. "I just did what needed to be done." The freighter's engines roared back to life. The ship stabilized, moving faster than before. Ethan engaged a series of complex maneuvers, weaving through a cluster of asteroids. The Dominion ship, damaged and struggling to keep up, fired wildly. Lyra directed the Horizon Dawn with precision, guiding them safely through the dangerous field. Hours passed. The Dominion patrol finally gave up the chase, retreating into the darkness. The ship was battered, scratched, and smoking, but it had survived. Lyra collapsed onto the floor, trembling. I can't believe we made it," she whispered. Ethan knelt beside her. "You did this. You were amazing. You saved both our lives." For the first time, Lyra felt true pride. She had faced danger, and she had survived. She had not just survived, she had protected someone else. She had value. She mattered. That night, after the adrenaline had faded, Lyra sat by the observation window again. The stars were calm now, distant and silent. Ethan joined her, sitting quietly. "You did well today," he said softly. "Most humans would have panicked. Most aliens would have given up, but you fought." Lyra looked at him, unsure how to respond. Praise was still strange, still new. "I just didn't want to die," she admitted. Ethan smiled. "It wasn't just about surviving. It was about protecting. That's what makes the difference. That's what makes a life meaningful." Lyra thought about those words. She had never known meaning. Her life had been nothing but survival, fear, and chains. But now she understood. She could make a difference. She could be more than what she had been. Days passed in quiet training and repair. Lyra helped Ethan maintain the ship, repaired damaged panels, and learned to anticipate the dangers of space. Their bond grew stronger, not just as captain and crew, but as something like family. Lyra had never known family, and she clung to Ethan as if he could fill the void of all the years she had lost. One evening, they detected a small distress signal. A mining vessel had broken down in an asteroid belt and the crew was trapped. Ethan considered ignoring it. Help could bring more danger, and they had barely recovered from the Dominion patrol. But Lyra's eyes lit up. "We have to help them," she said firmly. "If we can, we should." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "All right, we'll help, but stay sharp." They navigated the Horizon Dawn through the asteroid field, dodging jagged rocks and debris. The mining vessel was small, battered, and drifting. Inside, the crew was trapped, injured, and scared. Lyra assisted Ethan in repairing the ship's controls and freeing the miners. She moved quickly, confident in her actions, showing a calmness that belied her young age. The miners were grateful, offering supplies and thanks. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest she had never felt before. Helping others, saving lives, giving hope. This was new and it felt right. She realized that her destiny could be more than survival. She could be a force for good in the galaxy. Ethan watched her quietly, pride shining in his eyes. "You've changed," he said softly later, after the miners had departed. "You're not just a survivor anymore. You're a fighter, a helper, a leader. I knew you had it in you." Lyra smiled faintly. She had come a long way from Trenox Station, from the scrapyard where she was worth nothing. Now she was alive, strong, and capable. She was more than scraps. She was someone who mattered. But danger was never far away. Even as they celebrated small victories, the Dominion's shadow loomed in the distance. Lyra knew it was only a matter of time before they faced another threat, something far greater than patrol ships or raiders. And yet, for the first time, she was not afraid. She was ready. She had learned from Ethan, grown with him, and discovered a courage she never knew she possessed. The Horizon Dawn moved forward into the unknown, carrying a human and an alien girl who had been sold for scraps, now determined to survive, fight, and rewrite her destiny. Together, they faced the galaxy not as prey, but as fighters, survivors, and perhaps as heroes. The Horizon Dawn moved silently through a narrow asteroid belt. Lyra stood at the helm, her green eyes scanning the radar for any sign of danger. The last weeks had been quiet, but she knew it was only temporary. The Dominion would not stop hunting the Veyari, and their relentless patrols would find her sooner or later. Ethan leaned over her shoulder, watching her work. "Keep your focus," he said. "Even a small mistake could cost us." Lyra nodded. Her hands moved confidently over the controls. She had learned a lot from him, but this time felt different. She could sense the danger in her gut, a warning she could not ignore. Suddenly, the radar beeped urgently. A large ship appeared, moving fast, weapons ready. Lyra's heart raced. "Dominion fleet," she whispered. "They found us." Ethan's jaw tightened. "This isn't a patrol ship. It's a fleet, and they're serious about catching us." Lyra felt fear creeping in, but she pushed it aside. She was no longer the scrap girl from Trenock Station. She had learned, trained, and survived. Now she had to lead. Ethan turned to her. "I need you to follow my orders exactly. We can't outrun them all, but we can fight smart." Lyra nodded, gripping the controls. She took a deep breath and focused. The Horizon Dawn darted between asteroids, weaving through the dense field. The fleet fired energy beams, some hitting the hull. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and the ship rocked violently. "Divert all power to shields," Ethan shouted. "Lyra, adjust our trajectory. Take the left path through the larger rocks." Her fingers moved quickly. She twisted the controls, her mind calculating angles, speeds, and distances. The ship shuddered as they narrowly avoided collisions. A blast from one of the Dominion ships hit the engine room, sending smoke and fire into the corridor. Ethan grabbed her arm. "Get to the engine bay. Help me stabilize it." Lyra ran, her heart pounding. The corridor was filled with smoke and sparks, and the heat burned her skin. She had never been so terrified, but she did not stop. She reached the engine room where Ethan was already working on the main systems. "We need to redirect power to the main thrusters," Ethan said. "If we lose propulsion, we're dead." Lyra nodded and began adjusting the systems. Her hands moved with precision, recalling every lesson Ethan had taught her. Sparks flew, circuits hummed, and slowly the engine stabilized. Ethan looked at her with admiration. "You're incredible," he said. "You saved us again." Lyra shook her head, refusing praise. "We both did this. Together." The Horizon Dawn moved forward, weaving through asteroids and avoiding fire. But the fleet was relentless. Another Dominion ship broke off and aimed directly at them, weapons charging. "Brace yourself," Ethan shouted. "We have to fight." Lyra grabbed the weapons controls, aiming the ship's cannons at the incoming enemy. She had learned how to fire, how to predict enemy movements, and how to hit weak points. Her hands were steady and her mind clear. She fired, hitting the enemy ship's engines. Sparks flew and the ship slowed. Ethan used the distraction to maneuver the Horizon Dawn through a narrow gap in the asteroid field. The Dominion ship struggled to follow, its weapons hitting rocks instead of their target. Lyra felt a surge of confidence. "We can do this," she shouted. "Keep moving." The battle continued for hours. The fleet split, some chasing them, others trying to cut off their escape. Lyra and Ethan worked in perfect coordination. She handled the ship's systems, repaired damage as it happened, and targeted enemy weak points. Ethan fired the weapons, navigated and protected her when necessary. At one point, a blast tore through the ship's hull near the cargo bay. Lyra ran to help stabilize the area. The metal groaned under pressure and smoke filled the room. She used every skill she had learned to patch the hull, sealing the breach before it could do more damage. "You're doing amazing," Ethan said, watching her work. "I've never seen anyone move that fast under pressure." Lyra felt pride mixed with exhaustion. She was tired, her body aching, but she could not stop. She could not let them down. This was no longer about survival. It was about fighting back, proving that she was more than what the Dominion had made her believe. Finally, after a long and exhausting battle, the Horizon Dawn managed to shake the fleet. The Dominion ships, damaged and frustrated, retreated into the void. The freighter was battered, with smoke rising from the hull, but it was still flying. Lyra collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath. We made it," she whispered. Ethan knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We did, and you were amazing. I don't think I've ever seen anyone fight like that." Lyra shook her head. "It's not just fighting. I had to do it for you, for us." Ethan looked at her with a mixture of pride and concern. "You've grown so much. I'm proud of you. But we can't stay here. They'll come back stronger next time." Lyra nodded. "Then we keep moving. We don't stop. We don't hide." They worked together for the next several hours, repairing the ship as best they could. Lyra patched damaged systems, replaced broken circuits, and helped stabilize the hull. Ethan focused on navigation and weapons, making sure the ship was ready for the next encounter. As night fell, the ship drifted into a quiet sector of space. Lyra sat by the observation window staring at the stars. Her mind replayed the battle, every moment of fear, every decision she had made. She realized she was no longer the same girl who had been sold for scraps. She was strong, capable, and determined. Ethan joined her quietly, sitting beside her. "You did more than survive today," he said. "You proved that you can fight, lead, and protect. You're no longer just a survivor. You're a warrior." Lyra looked at him, her large eyes reflecting the starlight. "A warrior?" she asked softly. "Yes," Ethan said, "and maybe even more. You're someone who can change things, who can make a difference. You have a future now, not just survival." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. For years she had been nothing. Sold, discarded, treated like she had no value. But now she understood that her life could mean something. She could be more than a scrap girl. She could be a force for change. The next days were spent repairing the ship and preparing for the journey ahead. Lyra continued to train, not just in engineering and navigation, but also in strategy. She learned to anticipate threats, plan escape routes, and think ahead in battle. Ethan guided her patiently, teaching her everything he knew. One morning, as they traveled near a small colony, a distress signal appeared on the scanner. A freighter had been attacked by raiders and the crew was trapped. Lyra looked at Ethan. "We should help them," she said firmly. Ethan considered it. "It's dangerous. We're still recovering from the Dominion attack." "I don't care," Lyra said. "We can't just leave them. We have to act." Ethan smiled faintly. "You're right. Let's go." They guided the Horizon Dawn to the freighter, dodging debris and asteroids along the way. Lyra helped stabilize the ship's systems and guided the crew to safety. Her actions were precise, confident, and brave. The crew was grateful, offering supplies and thanks, but Lyra barely noticed. She felt a sense of purpose she had never felt before. Ethan watched her quietly. "You've become someone remarkable," he said later after the rescued crew had departed. "I've seen soldiers, mercenaries, and leaders, but none like you. You're special." Lyra smiled faintly, her heart full. She had come a long way from Trenock Station, from being sold for scraps and discarded like nothing. Now she had a place, a purpose, and someone who believed in her. But danger was always near. The Dominion would not give up, and new threats awaited in the galaxy. Lyra knew it was only a matter of time before they faced even greater challenges, and yet she was not afraid. She was ready. She had learned, trained, and grown. She had Ethan by her side, and together they could face anything. The Horizon Dawn moved forward, carrying a human and an alien girl who had been sold for scraps, now determined to fight, survive, and rewrite her destiny. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and for the first time Lyra believed that her future was hers to shape. The Horizon Dawn drifted through the edge of known space, far from colonies, trade routes, and safe harbors. Lyra stood at the observation deck, her green eyes scanning the void. The stars stretched endlessly before them, distant and cold, but she no longer felt small or afraid. She had survived, learned, and grown. Ethan entered quietly, leaning against the railing. "You're quiet," he said softly. "Thinking about the last attack?" Lyra shook her head. "I'm thinking about the future," she said. "About what comes next. We can't hide forever. Dominion will find us again and they won't be gentle." Ethan nodded. "You're right. We need a plan. We need to fight back, not just survive." For months they had been traveling, avoiding patrols, helping those in need, and learning from each encounter. Lyra had grown stronger, faster, smarter. She could pilot the Horizon Dawn through asteroid fields, repair critical systems, and even command the weapons with precision. She had gone from a scrap girl to a warrior, and now she was more than that. She was a leader. Suddenly the radar lit up with multiple contacts. Lyra's stomach tightened. "Fleet," she whispered. "A full Dominion fleet. They've come for us." Ethan's face hardened. "This is it," he said. "We fight or we die, but we're not going down without a fight." The fleet approached quickly, weapons primed. Lyra felt the familiar surge of fear, but it no longer controlled her. She had faced danger before, survived, and come out stronger. Now she would take charge. "Captain," she said firmly, "I have a plan. If we split the fleet, we can take down their lead ship first. Disable their command and the rest will retreat." Ethan studied her, surprised. You really think you can do it? I can, she said. We do this together. Ethan nodded. All right, let's go. The Horizon Dawn darted forward, weaving through debris and asteroids. Lyra directed the ship with precision, dodging energy blasts from the Dominion ships. She aimed the Horizon Dawn's weapons at weak points, striking the lead ship's shields repeatedly. Sparks and explosions erupted, shaking the enemy vessel. Ethan manned the main cannons, firing with deadly accuracy. You're doing it, he shouted. Keep the pressure on. Lyra adjusted the targeting systems, predicting the enemy's movements. Her mind worked faster than she had ever imagined possible. Each shot, each maneuver was calculated. She was no longer a child sold for scraps. She was a strategist, a fighter, and a protector. The Dominion lead ship fired back, hitting the Horizon Dawn's hull. Alarms blared and sparks flew from the damaged systems. Lyra remained calm, directing emergency repairs while continuing to attack. She worked tirelessly, her determination unwavering. Almost there, she muttered. Just one more hit on the engines. Ethan fired the final shot. The Dominion ship's engines exploded, sending it spinning out of control. The remaining fleet hesitated, unsure what to do without their leader. Lyra seized the opportunity. She maneuvered the Horizon Dawn through the chaos, hitting key systems on the retreating ships. The fleet scattered, broken and defeated. Silence fell. The Horizon Dawn floated in the void, battered but victorious. Lyra sank into a chair, exhaustion overtaking her. Her hands shook and sweat covered her brow. Ethan sat beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. You did it, he said softly. You led us to victory. Lyra shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. We did it, she whispered. Together. The ship was damaged, but they had survived. More importantly, they had proved something. Humans and aliens could work together, fight together, and overcome impossible odds. Lyra had been sold for scraps, discarded like nothing. But now she had rewritten her destiny. She was no longer worthless. She was a hero. In the days that followed, they repaired the Horizon Dawn as best they could. Lyra took the lead on repairs, her skills sharper than ever. She reinforced the hull, repaired the engines, and upgraded the weapon systems. Ethan watched her with pride, knowing that she had grown into someone strong, capable, and brave. One evening, as they floated near a small, forgotten planet, Lyra looked at the stars. Captain, she said softly, do you think we've changed anything? Did what we did matter? Ethan smiled. It matters more than you know. You've given hope to people who had none. You've shown that even the smallest, weakest, and youngest can fight back. You've proved that life is worth more than chains and fear. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. For years she had been alone, sold, and forgotten. Now she had purpose, family, and a future. She was more than scraps, more than a victim. She was a fighter, a leader, and a survivor. Weeks passed. Lyra and Ethan continued their journey, helping others, repairing old ships, and avoiding Dominion patrols. Lyra became a legend among the colonies, a symbol of courage and hope. Stories of the scrap girl who became a hero spread across the systems. People whispered of her bravery, her strength, and the human who stood by her side. One day, as they approached a remote colony, they received a message. It was from a group of freed Veyari. They had heard of Lyra, the girl who had survived the Dominion and fought back. They asked for her help to rebuild their people, to protect those who remained. Lyra looked at Ethan. This is our chance, she said, to do more than survive, to help them, to make a difference. Ethan nodded. Then we do it together. They landed on the colony. Lyra stepped out, her green skin catching the sunlight. She looked at the faces of the Veyari, tired, scared, but hopeful. For the first time she felt truly at home. The Veyari bowed their heads in respect. Lyra, one elder said, you have returned to us. You are no longer a child sold for scraps. You are our protector, our leader. Lyra's heart swelled with pride. She remembered Trenock Station, the scrapyard, the fear, and the loneliness. All of it had led her here. All of it had shaped her into someone strong. I only survived because of him, she said softly, looking at Ethan. He believed in me. Ethan smiled. No, Lyra, you believed in yourself. I only helped you see it. The colony began to rebuild, inspired by Lyra's courage. She trained the young, repaired old ships, and led missions to rescue those still trapped under Dominion rule. She became a symbol, a reminder that no one is worthless, that even the smallest life can change the universe. Months later, Lyra stood on a hill overlooking the colony. Ethan joined her, handing her a small cup of water. "You've done something incredible," he said. Lyra nodded, gazing at the horizon. "I've been sold for scraps, thrown away and forgotten. But now I know I matter. I know I can make a difference." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "And you will. We'll keep moving forward, helping others, fighting for what's right. Together." Lyra smiled. For the first time in her life, she felt truly free. She was no longer a victim of her past. She had rewritten her destiny, and nothing could take that away. As the Horizon Dawn prepared to leave the planet, carrying Lyra and Ethan back into the stars, the galaxy seemed a little brighter. Far from the Dominion, far from fear, a human and an alien girl who had been sold for scraps sailed into the unknown. And for the first time, Lyra felt the full weight of hope, courage, and destiny. She was not just alive, she was alive to fight, to protect, and to make the universe a better place. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and together they moved forward, rewriting history, changing lives, and proving that even the smallest spark can ignite the greatest fire.